Cryonaia, the Arctic Revenant, is the brand new Hypogean character to be released in AFK Journey, and in today's video we're going to break down her skill kit, discuss her optimal partners as well as team builds, and talk about the different game modes where she excels in the game itself. Cryonaia's ultimate is the most important part of the kit, as the Frostveil domain allows Cryonaia to summon the domain of Eternal Winter to trap up to 3 enemies and their summons for 12 seconds. This skill targets all enemies when you're fighting the bosses and allows Cryonaia to gain a frost shield during the duration of the ultimate to absorb damage, become immune to control effect, as well as gain a massive haste and attack percentage buff to make her the super carry within her own domain itself. Her second skill, Icicle Tempest, allows her to summon a powerful ice storm that sweeps across the battlefield to deal AoE damage to all enemies within the area of the storm, and after casting the ultimate, this skill transforms into a full-size ice storm to deal even more damage as well as cover a bigger part of the map. And her third skill, Frigid Edge, allows her to launch ice shards at enemy, and while the frost shield is active, the cooldown of this skill is reduced to 3 seconds. Last but not least, Cryonaia's EX weapon skill, Frozen in Time, allows her to deal damage to all enemies each time they are brought into the domain of Eternal Winter, while only allowing Cryonaia to use her ultimate within her own domain itself. This skill also allows Cryonaia to stop battle time for up to 30 seconds as she's casting her ultimate. It is also important to note that while the Frost Shield is active, Cryonaia is able to instantaneously freeze and defeat enemies within her ultimate domain should their HP threshold falls below a certain percentage. So combining her full skill set together, we can tell that Cryonaia is an ultimate reliant unit that wants to get to her ultimate as soon as possible to activate the time freeze, as well as the full set enhancement on her second and third skill, as well as her Supreme Plus skill for the insta kill ability. Now let us move on to the best teammates as well as team builds for Cryonaia. For the teammate portion, it is important to note that when Cryonaia casts her ultimate, the only units that are able to activate their abilities as well as their ultimates will be Cryonaia as well as the enemies trapped within the Frostveil domain. So what this means is that it is optimal to pair Cryonaia with units that are able to have lingering skills, which allows them to do damage, debuff the enemies, or buff Cryonaia when Cryonaia is casting her ultimate. One of the best units to combo with Cryonaia would be none other than Bonnie, as Bonnie is able to deal massive AoE magical damage while being able to damage the enemies through Cryonaia's ultimate through Decay's Reach ability. Decay's Reach additionally also debuffs the enemy, which reduces their damage output while within Cryonaia's ultimate to increase her survivability. Last but not least, Bonnie is also able to increase the magical damage as well as ultimate damage taken on the enemy should they reach the maximum stack for the aging effect, which will also increase Cryonaia's damage output. And since Cryonaia's ultimate is such a game-changing ability, it is important to include units who are able to buff Cryonaia to accelerate towards her ultimate or spam her ultimate in battle. Units like Twins, Freyasto, Damien as well as Rowan has the ability to provide for additional haste or energy regen for Cryonaia to accelerate to the ultimate usage and spam the ultimate afterwards. And in this part of the video, I'm going to discuss a few team ideas that you guys can use with Cryonaia across multiple different game modes as I break down the team synergies as well as combos with Cryonaia. The very first team is one which includes the Twins, Freyasto, Ludovic as well as Bonnie with Cryonaia, as we have the likes of Freyasto as well as Twins to provide for the energy regen and haste buff to allow Cryonaia to spam her skill, and we also have the heals and sustain from the Twins together with Ludovic to keep Cryonaia healthy before she unleashes her barrage of skills on the enemy, and last but not least, the additional damage output from Bonnie through her Decay's Reach ability as well as the magical and ultimate damage amplification to aid Cryonaia in killing the enemy as fast as possible. Another amazing team idea with Cryonaia would be putting her with the likes of Hypogean as well as Rowan, because Rowan's potion as well as Hypogean's shielding capabilities will provide Cryonaia with the survival to get to her ultimate. Subsequently, we have the buffs from Hypogean to increase her damage output, as well as the energy regen from Rowan to dominate the battlefield itself. Since Cryonaia and Bonnie has such an insane synergy, you can consider combining Cryonaia with the likes of Satrana and Bonnie to form the Ignite Passion, Decays Witch Damage Overtime combo. So this combo is able to wither down the enemy, and when you combine that with Cryonaia's damage potential, we are able to quickly bring down the enemy within her ultimate to secure a quick victory. Based on initial testing of Cryonaia, this is a very versatile character that can excel at multiple different game modes. First of all, from a Dream Realm perspective, Cryonaia is able to freeze time in boss battle, which allows you to jam in more damage with lingering damage types such as Odie's poison over time, as well as allow Cryonaia to deal damage within that frozen time duration. When you combine that with other really good damage dealers or carries, this will allow you to jam in even more damage to the boss to further increase your total damage output. From an AFK stage pushing perspective, Cryonaia is an amazing unit, but at the same time, being a unit with very little defensive protection, only having the shield from her ultimate, she is also very vulnerable to being sniped down by the enemies. So against certain AFK stages where the enemies hit really hard, she might not survive to unleash her massive damage potential, but she is without a doubt one of the strongest unit if she's able to survive to pull off her full combos against the enemy. And PvP would be what I'll say is Cryonaia's strongest game mode, because in the PvP side of things, once Cryonaia casts her ultimate, it is pretty much game over for the other side in most cases. And even if she's not able to win the fight in one ultimate, the second ultimate would actually come really fast because she's able to channel her skill shortly after she gets sufficient energy after her first ultimate. So this means that as long as Cryonaia has the ability to spam her ultimate continuously, she will be able to win you the PvP fight really easily. And this is a very common sight based on our initial testing on the Pioneer server. And that's pretty much it for this Cryonaia video. Thank you very much for tuning in to the end, and I'll see you guys again in the next Journeys to Grandmasters video. Bye guys!